Iran was already facing two Marine expeditionary units moving toward its doorstep. But now, something much bigger is unfolding. The United States is preparing a move that could permanently change control over one of the most critical choke points on Earth, the Strait of Hormuz. And this time, it's not just ships. Elite paratroopers are on the way, and Iran may not be ready for what comes next, because what we're seeing right now looks less like deterrence and more like preparation. Over the past few days, the Pentagon quietly confirmed something that had been rumored for weeks. The 82nd Airborne Division is deploying to the Middle East. Not a symbolic move. Over 2,000 elite paratroopers. And here's where things get serious. These aren't just any troops. Many belong to the Immediate Response Force. That means they can deploy anywhere in the world in under 18 hours. Think about that. This isn't a slow buildup. This is a force designed for sudden action. And when units like this move, something big is usually about to happen. Quick pause. If you like deep no BS military analysis like this, hit subscribe now. You don't want to miss what's coming next. So the question is obvious. What exactly is the US preparing for? To understand that, we need to talk about one place, a small island most people have never heard of, but one that could decide the outcome of this entire crisis. Karg Island, just 20 square kilometers, around 20,000 people. But here's the key. Nearly 90% of Iran's oil exports pass through this island. Let that sink in. In 2024 alone, Iran generated roughly $43 billion in oil revenue. That's over half of its total exports, and almost all of it flows through this single critical nukta. So if you control Karg Island, you don't just hit Iran militarily, you hit it economically at the core. Now let's connect the dots. Iran has effectively restricted traffic through the Strait of Hormuz. Before this crisis, around 140 ships per day crossed it. Now, that number has collapsed to just a handful, some days as low as 5 or 6, and most of them linked to Iran. At the same time, Tehran is reportedly charging massive transit fees. So from a global perspective, this isn't just a regional issue anymore, it's an economic pressure point. And real quick, drop a comment. Do you think the US would actually take Karg Island, or is this just pressure tactics? I read every comment, which brings us back to the US move. Because suddenly, the deployment makes sense. If negotiations fail, taking Karg Island becomes a powerful lever, not necessarily to hold it forever, but to force Iran's hand. But here's the twist. The 82nd Airborne Division alone isn't ideal for this mission. They're light infantry, fast, flexible, but vulnerable, especially during airborne insertion, and especially against missiles or armored counterattacks. So why send them? Send, because they wouldn't be alone. Two Marine expeditionary units are already moving into the region. Each one is a self-contained assault force. Infantry, armor, helicopters, close air support. Everything needed to take and hold ground. So now imagine the scenario. Marines hit the island from the sea. Paratroopers secure key infrastructure from the air. Within hours, Karg is no longer under Iranian control. If this scenario surprises you, wait until the next part, because this is where it gets really interesting. Because this might not just be about taking territory, it might be about forcing a decision. At the same time this deployment was announced, the US also started talking about ceasefire negotiations, a 15-point plan, including nuclear restrictions, missile programs, and Iran's proxy networks. But Iran's response, publicly dismissive, almost mocking. So what's really going on? Here's a possibility most people are missing. This could be strategic ambiguity in action. The US talks about peace while positioning for war, creating confusion inside Iran's leadership. Because if different factions believe different things, decision-making slows down, and hesitation in a crisis like this can be fatal. Meanwhile, the military buildup continues, quietly, relentlessly, step by step. By the way, if you've made it this far, you're exactly the kind of viewer this channel is built for. Consider subscribing. You're going to love what's coming. And that brings us to the real question. Is this all pressure, Or is this the setup for something much bigger? Because if the US actually moves on Karg Island, we're not talking about a limited strike anymore. We're talking about a move that could reshape the balance of power in the Gulf. And here's the final piece. Before any of this, the US already conducted bunker busting strikes on Iranian missile sites near the coast, which means one thing. This isn't improvisation, this is sequencing. So now the ball is in Iran's court. Negotiate or risk losing the very asset that sustains its economy. Final question. What would you do if you were in Iran's position right now? Escalate or negotiate? Let's talk in the comments, because what happens next in the Strait of Hormuz could impact energy markets, global trade, and the balance of power far beyond the Middle East.